Boomerang in my grandparents' language, and that language is a Noongar language from the Noongar Nation or Bibbulmun Nation in the southwest of Western Australia. It's really important for me to pay my respects to the Gurungai people, their country that I'm standing on. When we cross tribal boundaries or go into anyone else's country, it's important to be respectful and say hello as best you can. I know when I've travelled overseas, I've learned to say hello in various languages, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you would know how to say bonjour, or kia ora, or yasu, ciao, ni hao, konnichiwa. But I'm not too sure if any of you would know how to say hello in one of the 150 plus Aboriginal languages from this country. Can I get a show of hands of anyone who can say hello in a dialect from our country? No one. Awesome. So this next part's going to work for me. I'm going to teach you guys. I was a bit nervous about someone who put their hand up, but I would like to teach you guys how to say hello in my language. 2 syllables, really easy. Kaya. Can everyone say kaya? I reckon you can do better than that. Can everyone say kaya? Kaya? There we go. I think the Gurungai ancestors heard that one. It's a different language, but it's important to share what we have, especially language. I wanted to share with you guys something that's really important to me, something that I love, and that's my culture, and particularly my language. And when I say my, I'm representing my nation here, my people. So I now reference as our language. We're very lucky to have our language in the southwest of Western Australia. There are a lot of Aboriginal tribal groups who don't have that beauty, unfortunately, because of the settlement of this country and the history that we're all pretty aware of, I'm guessing. A huge number of Aboriginal languages are vulnerable. They're either critically or severely endangered, dormant, as I would like to call it, rather than being extinct. So it's really important that we revitalise them as much as we can. And when I say we, I mean all us mob. All us mob. The story in language that I shared with you at the beginning was a story about myself being told about how this place got its name. I basically said in my language that this beautiful land here that we're on, a big boat came across the ocean through the inlet and saw these strong Aboriginal men standing on this country. And Governor Phillip and his mob, I always say mob, came in and they saw these men and they admired them. I would think anyway, I wasn't there, but the story goes that because of their masculinity and their strength and what they were omitting as Aboriginal men, which these Wadjalas or Nyiriang, white fellas, weren't threatened by, they named this place Manly. I thought that was rather interesting. And I often think, I wonder what the Gurungai mob would have called this place traditionally, what their language is. It's interesting. And my talk today I want to dedicate to one of my greatest teachers. It's 2 years next week since her passing, and I just thought I'd bring her along with me.
You want to learn how to say it properly. Noongar language. Ngala nitya buja. Ngala European nunatyahi nitya.
That is one of my grandmothers. Her name is Kath, Nana Kath. We call him Kaberli in my language. When I was young, like a lot of my cousins and a lot of family, we started out learning a couple of words here and there in language. It wasn't our first language, spoken language, but we'd learn words here and there, and once we got the hang of it, we'd be teasing each other. You're a manjang. No, I'm not. You mokyang. You manjang, Mom. She calling me manjang. Will you kids stop it? Just settle down. So I guess the teasing factor was really helpful in learning language back then. Go through school, get a little bit older, a bit more savvy, and then you start to learn a few other words that can get you in trouble with the old fellas. My grandfather played an integral part in my life as well. He used to have Noongar dictionaries lying around the house. He was a very, very well-respected Aboriginal man in my community. He passed away when I was 12, so I moved from the little country town I lived in the southwest of WA to Perth, to the big city. so I thought, but now being in Sydney, it's like a little country town itself. I spent a lot of time with my grandmother. The reason I moved to Perth was to be with her after my grandfather passed away, so she wasn't alone. And I learnt a lot more about family, our kinship system, our clan, our tribe, our culture. At the age of 16, my grandmother dragged me into a wonderful place called Yirrayakan. Yirrayakan is the only Aboriginal theatre company in Western Australia. And I wanted to know what Yirrayakan meant. As soon as I got there, hey, Yuma, what Yirrayakan mean? Yirrayakan means stand tall in Noongar language. Now that I'm here looking back, I can see how much of my journey has influenced my love of language and culture. I did a lot of shows with Yirrayakan. I worked in the office. I spent 11 years at this company. I was 16. But the beautiful thing about this company is that language is embedded in their shows, in the office, in their way of life. So it's constantly being used because, let's face it, if you don't use it, you lose it. I worked with so many amazing artists and people in this company, and they've all had an influence on my journey and my role now and responsibility for carrying on their awesome work. The first story I'd like to share with you guys, and the opportunity that I had to really immerse myself in language and culture and learn from the elders, was, a large-scale event called the Welcome to Country. And it was a part of the opening ceremony for the Perth International Arts Festival. This particular year, 2006, the then artistic director wanted to focus on the southwest of WA, the Noongar Nation. A huge canvas was made called Ngalakort Buja, our heartland. We wanted to put together a great showcase of our culture for everyone because it's an international festival. There's people there from all over Australia, all around the world. I wanted to dance. I wanted to get up there and dance with the young women. But my elder said, no, you have to sing with us. And I was really inside, I was like, what? I can't do that. No. But in front of them, yep, no worries, Kabbali, yep, I can do that. Same time, I'm like, oh my gosh, huge responsibility. So we get to the event, they put out the chairs, 8 chairs, and I said, hey, you mob, who's that 8th chair for? That was for you. I said, no way. I'm not sitting up on the same level with my elders. Even though they invite me to, I'd rather sit down on the ground. Just be grounded, sit next to them, rather than sit up with them. It was a very overwhelming experience. But it was a great turnout, to the point where we had our Aboriginal men come up on the stage afterwards, bawling their eyes out with so much gratitude and respect and pride. It's an amazing event, life-changing. The second opportunity, or I guess chapter in my book, that I had the honour of immersing in language and being a part of the fun, was a children's television show called Wabin Time. I present on this show, I'm the host. I have an awesome sidekick with me on this show as well. I should have brought that image, Lee. He's awesome. An Italian lady, how this came about, she has a background in teaching. She used to teach in the Kimberley area in WA, towards Top Part, if you haven't been to WA. She speaks Italian and to her grandmother, and she worked in a lot of communities, and she was really saddened by the fact that a lot of Aboriginal kids out there don't speak in their native tongue to their mob, to their grandmothers, grandparents, grandfathers, mothers, fathers, uncles, aunties. So she spoke to a couple of people. One or a couple of those people she spoke to were affiliated with NITV. The commissioning editor in Western Australia at the time advised her that if you want to do a TV show in Noongar language and you want a presenter and you want somebody that can present, then you need to contact Kylie Farmer. I was on tour doing a show, educational show with Yirrayakan at the time. She called me. I said, yep, I'm there. Got my interest. Met up with her and started doing this television show in Noongar language for kids, very young, aged between 3 and 6. The other project I'd like to share with you guys was a joint or a collaborative project with Yirrayakan, again, this awesome theatre company I started out at, and Community Arts Network, Canwa. They were putting together a project in Narrogin. Now, Narrogin is another kind of smallish town, about 35 kilometres away from the town that I grew up in, Pingelly. And when they told me what the project was, pop songs being translated into Noongar for the kids so they could learn their language. Because a lot of young fellas these days in this country are more interested in, the American music and other influential cultures rather than our own. And Narrogin is it's a beautiful town, but it can be quite prejudiced. In the last 2.5 years, there's been about a dozen youth suicides. There's a lot of pressure in it, and that town needs a lot of healing. They didn't have to ask me twice. I said, yep, I'm going to be there. I want to be a part of this project. I had the opportunity to be involved as the translator or interpreter. I don't know a lot of these songs that these young fellas sing these days, so it was quite interesting. And for those of you who speak another language, I'm sure you can empathise with the fact that English words, we don't have a direct translation for them sometimes, or often, actually. They chose a song by James Arthur. I don't know, you might have heard of it, called Impossible. I think he was like a winner of the X Factor. We don't have a word for impossible in our culture. Nothing was impossible to us back then. Everything was set out. So I was racking my brain thinking, how can I manage this? And it took me a couple of seconds, and I went, well, what would our ancestors or our mob think that's impossible in our culture? Like, what would be impossible? And I thought, well, if there wasn't a sky, that would be something that's impossible. Okay, let me check. Does it fit the rhyme? Does it fit the lyric section? Does it have the right amount of syllables? And the actual song, Impossible, a part of the chorus, it goes, da, 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 impossible, 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 impossible. Okay, well, how do I fit that with Nyunga? So, Yuart means no. Sky we call wul. So I went, hey guys, how about if we sing it like this? If we go, Yuart woo, Yuart woo, Yuart woo, Yuart woo. And when I heard these young fellas sing that, it just made me cry. Because this is a town where young fellas are suffering. And to give them a bit of their culture back just changed their perspective on who they are as young Nyunga people. The next project I want to share with you guys that I had the opportunity of working